The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome on into First and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you. It's another week looking at Big 12 football. Man, this league just always delivers some epic results. It's a league of chaos. They thrive on the chaos, and we thrive on providing some Sunday chaos as we break down the week that was in Big 12 football. It was a crazy week, Alex.
Oh, yes, it was, Mitch. And why would we have expected anything different? I mean, my goodness, we've been delivering. Every week, and specifically with the BYU ending and then, just Utah's season taking all these weird turns and the league just overall. And, of course, Kansas is the best team in the conference now. I don't know if you knew that. So there are just so many things that we can break down with this conference. And, of course, as always, our program brought to you by Macy's, the grocery store that we love, their support on this program. The freshest fruits and vegetables from the local farms and your local favorite brands. Let's kick everything off right here. Right off the bat, we're going to get to BYU and Arizona State down in Tempe. Let's do it.
The BYU Breakdown.
Cougs fall to Arizona State 28-23. Man, I'll give BYU credit that it was a lot closer outcome, final score than I was thinking it would be at halftime. But still, BYU comes up short and suffers their second consecutive loss. Alex, I was there in Tempe yesterday at Mountain America Stadium. I hate saying that. It should be Sun Devil Stadium forever.
Come on,
it's always Sun Devil Stadium. That scene at the end of the game was wild. It was tense. It was really nuts, and we got the full experience of Sun Devil fans in their purest intoxicated form.
So that's what I was going to say is that – so what Mitch is not telling you is Mitch captured on X this video of this ASU student who decided to tangle a little bit with the law enforcement down there at Mountain America Field, and it was quite – he was like, I'm sorry, okay, I got it. So and look, if you watched it, we were watching it in the studio, and we're looking at the thing, and we're just head in hands going – they are never going to clear this field. I'm surprised that they did. I mean, it was just another wild ending. The reality was the ending was wild. The beginning was absolute terror for BYU because it was a slow start. And interestingly enough, Mitch, and the thing that I had in mind was I think we all banked on BYU's defense being super solid, and the reality was none of the three phases of BYU football, special teams, defense, or offense, showed up in that first half. It wasn't just the offense. We wondered if the offense would wake up, but it was the defense struggling, stopping Cam Scadaboo. I don't know if you know this. In the scouting report, he runs the football for Arizona State. So they obviously knew they were going to get a huge dose of him. And Arizona State, to their credit, they came out swinging. This is exactly what they do. It's exactly what they did against Kansas State last week. They were up 24-0, lickety split, and they played tough. And they sort of trail off in the second half. And that's exactly what happened here. BYU's scoring in the red zone woes, all that stuff, kind of got put to bed in the second half. I don't know if BYU's offense turned a corner there. There were certainly some bright spots, and Jake Retzlaff was finding a lot of a groove, and that last pick there, I think everybody's going to look and go, oh, my goodness. I mean, it was just an absolute gut punch because they were marching. It felt very much like last week when they were marching, and they get so close, and then no cigar there at the end. So, I was surprised. The tale of two halves there, Arizona State, it wasn't just being up 21-0 and then 21-3 at the half. It was that 28-9 when they just responded immediately when BYU got a touchdown that I thought, oh, boy. And, to the credit of BYU, they made the adjustments, and it was just way too little, way too late. And now the top of the conference is an absolute dang mess.
BYU was non-existent on the ground, 23 carries for 94 yards. I thought that was a disappointing performance when your top running back basically in the second half was Keelan Marion jet sweeps. Like, come on, BYU.
Right, yeah.
At some point, are you going to run L.J. Martin or not? He ends up with only 9 carries for 42 yards. It seems like if there's ever a play that goes for negative yards with LJ, they just abandon that and forget,
Right.
oh, they got a running back. And Kalani said in the postgame, we'll hear from Kalani coming up today, and you'll also hear from Kyle Whittingham as well, reacting to Utah's Iowa State game. But Kalani's like, yeah, we got some pretty good running backs too. Well, highlight them. Cam Scatterbo, from the moment, that 16-yard run on the opening play, he set the tone. And BYU was very aggressive, and I like that Kalani was, he came in, he set the narrative this week that we want to recapture our identity. Well, your identity was being an aggressive team on fourth down, so I understand the whole move to fourth down, maybe a punt, but you go for it.
Yeah.
And it ended up backfiring because ASU pounced, and they set the tone with Scatterbo, who was brilliant on that first half, and you're thinking, ooh, this is going to be a long day for BYU if they don't get things fixed. And they didn't really get things fixed until about the last 25 minutes of the game.
Yeah, that's
when things started to fix defensively.
Yeah, that's I think about what we said when in the post game. The thing that we went back and forth on, because it was like, oh, it was two halves. I said, nah, it wasn't even. It was really 1.5 quarters in the second half. That's what it felt like. It was, and look, and the thing that really made the difference in those last 20-25 minutes of the game was, one, Arizona State's not a good fourth quarter team. They are in the negative in the fourth quarter compared to all of their other opponents, and they sort of fall off. And so you anticipated that might happen. But I mean, I'm telling you, this is what's interesting about it is the push on the offensive line was in Arizona's favor, and then on the defensive line in Arizona's favor. They were absolutely dominating the trenches, and it wasn't until those last 20 minutes that BYU decided, you know what, we can beat these guys at the line of scrimmage, and they did. So second half, I mean, BYU had, I don't even know how many yards they had in the first half, Mitch, but they ended up with 391 on the day. Arizona State with 401. Sam Leavitt was just about as good as everybody had advertised. They had great play calling. The onside kick squib, pop it to Talon Alfrey, whatever they wanted to call it on that play. It was a brilliant call, and you know what? How many times has BYU been outsmarted on special teams this year? Not very often. And so that to me was also a big indicator. Special teams struggled, offense struggled, defense struggled, and obviously a 28-23 win. You still had the opportunity to win the game at the end, which is wild.
I don't like the whole moral victory thing, and I still don't subscribe to that because this is supposed to be where you know who you are. You're not trying to find yourself at this juncture of the season. But I will say that the way that they played in the second half erased any narrative and conversation that we would be having potentially tonight or today if BYU was fraudulent. Because I'll tell you, at that first half, at the halftime break when they're down 21-3, I thought, man, everything we thought we knew about BYU, that was smoke and mirrors, and that did not show up down the stretch here. So they did kind of get back to who they looked like in stretches, earlier in the year in that second half. But still, that was a poor performance from BYU all around. And on a week where the coaches were saying, oh, it's a good week of practice, and players last week called out the effort in practice, and the thought is, oh, they're practicing well, and then they stumble out of the gates. It was a poor showing from BYU. The fans showed up in huge numbers. I think even ASU fans were thinking, whoa, we didn't expect it to be this much blue. BYU fans showed up in big numbers, and they didn't have much to cheer about until late in that game. And, I think Jake Retzlaff, he got the full experience once again. He's going to give you some moments. That the pass to JoJo Phillips, that 21-yard strike for a touchdown, great ball. But then the interception that was intended for Darius Laster, that's just the Jake experience. And you got to give credit, too, to Arizona State's defensive front. I underestimated them. I thought they were a lot better and more aggressive and physical than BYU in this matchup. And credit to Kenny Dillingham and his squad for being ready for the task of delivering a big win for the Valley.
BYU's defense did have some moments that they can hang a lot of what their toughness was about. The fourth down stop to start I think was the first drive in the second half for ASU. They stopped them on the 4 or the 5 or whatever it was. That was big because they went down and scored. They stopped it again on that last one. Isaiah Glasker is a dude, man. I mean, that guy knows how to play. And what's crazy is that that matchup between Scatterbo and BYU's linebackers, I was hoping maybe it would be that, well, nobody else likes to tackle them on that first hit, but this BYU team will. They fell just like everybody else did to Cam Scatterbo, which is you can't arm tackle that guy. You can't even full body tackle him. You got to rope that dude. And man, it's he's tough. Arizona State's a real deal. they're trending up, and BYU has sort of plateaued a little bit, but I agree with you that second half, there were glimpses there that they could probably look at going into this week, and maybe they got the red zone thing off their back. Their third down conversions were brilliant yesterday, and that's something that they have been terrible at, and Arizona State's defense is usually rock solid on. And so that's something you could also take into next week. Look, you got to beat Houston next week for BYU. That's the only way to be able to even get into the scenarios that you have to have happen next week for BYU to still get into the Big 12 championship game. And guess who they would probably be playing in that Big 12 championship game? Could you imagine a rematch between Arizona State and BYU in Arlington? That would be phenomenal, especially considering some of the videos that we saw Sam Levitt put out on social media tonight. So it's really, or last night, really fun. So this is just all the stuff that I love, though, about football, man. It just makes it so much more fun. Let's take our first break. We'll come back. We're going to break down Cal Whittingham's thoughts on their loss, the 7th loss in a row for the first time in Cal Whittingham's head coaching tenure, and the first time that this Utah program has lost 7 games in a row since 1986. It's a part of history you don't want to be on, and certainly a part of history that Kyle Whittingham has almost never been a part of at this school during his 24 years as an assistant and a head coach. We'll come back. We've got Kyle Whittingham next. It's 1st and 12, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio.
Today's just the start of the Big 12 and Power 5 talk to come. Listen to JJ and Alex Monday on your drive home. Afternoons from 3 to 6 on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Ah, shucks. Thanks for the intro, station voice. Yes, JJ and Alex, that's the show that I'm a part of, Alex Kirry. Mitch Harper, he'll be hosting Cougar Nation this week, of course, with Matt Baiamonte. And look, he and Matt do Cougar Sports Saturday, and I don't know, do people totally dip out after a second loss in a row? Certainly there's still a lot on the table, but BYU's got a lot that they have to rely on, for this thing. And so we'll get into that, though, Mitch. But we do want to talk some Utah here. Utah falls to Iowa State in Salt Lake City. They made a game out of it, and, of course, it wasn't really their offense. The storyline was you had a special teams touchdown. You had a pick six for a touchdown. Those were 14 of your points on the evening. On an evening where they could not move the ball at all, Isaac Wilson ends up leaving the game early with what looks like a really, really weird, at the very least, it did not look good, that left knee injury. And then Luke Batari, the Ferrari, comes in with his long mullet, and, man, he kind of juiced the place up. It was really fun to watch, but they fall short 31-28. Here's Kyle Whittingham in the postgame.
First thing I'll say is how much I appreciate the senior class. Great group of guys. A lot of them have won so many games for us through the years and have done so much for the program. Tough to see them go, but as I say every year, that's the circle of life in college football is seniors go, new guys come. That's just how it works. So, but they'll be missed. Very proud of what they've accomplished academically while they were here. We've got guys with master's degrees, and I think every one of them by May will have their bachelor's. I think 90-something% of them have it now. So very proud of what they have accomplished. They deserved better this season. They deserve better tonight. Tough loss. Team battled from start to finish. Kind of the story of the season. Couldn't get enough offense generated. Only found the end zone one time offensively. Defense had a pick six. Blocked a punt for a touchdown. Did some good things there. That was a very positive thing to see. Is making a big play on special teams. Thought Luke Batari came in and really did some good things. I'm proud of Luke, and probably will be our quarterback next week as it's looking. And so, but we'll know for a day or two. But hope Isaac's going to be okay. I don't think it's real serious, but again, reserve judgment until we get the final doctor results. Back to offense. 9 first downs and only a couple 100 yards, 220 or something. That's just not enough. And defensively, again, we had a chance to make the stop at the end to clinch, and we just can't seem to make that final stop that we need. But again, guys have a reason to hold their head high. They sold out they gave it everything they had, and just wasn't enough again tonight. So questions.
Kyle, it seemed like Isaac was holding on to the ball a little too long to try to get his receiver. Is he thinking too much because he's trying to play conservative, or kind of what's going into that decision making?
I think there's probably a combination of things. Not wanting to make a mistake is probably at the top of the list, and we've turned the ball over excessively this year, and that's in order to have a chance, you can't do that, and we didn't turn it over excessively tonight, so that was one of the reasons why we're in the ball game. But he's young, which matters. I mean, he's a freshman, although he's had probably 600 reps now, 500 plus. And so we just got to evaluate everything and still have one more ball game next week, although, like I said, questionable whether he'll be available. But he's a work in progress, and we'll just continue to see how things play out.
With, like you said, all the reps that Isaac has had, 500, 600, I didn't hear the number. Is he where you want him to be in terms of his development, and what else, I guess, would you need to see from him in the offseason?
Yeah, we need to be better. We need to be better as coaches. I need to be better. I'm not, we're not pinning this on Isaac Wilson by any means, but we'll evaluate the whole body of work at the end of the season. We evaluate it every week, but at the end of the year, we'll look at what he was able to do and what the numbers were, because statistics matter for a quarterback. They matter a lot, and so it's one of the positions that really are statistically driven. And so we'll just make those decisions once we get the game complete next week. We're heading to Central Florida on Friday. So 6 days left before the season's over. We know we're not going to a bowl game, which is unfortunate for those seniors, because again, they really deserve that, but just came up short.
From your vantage point, what went wrong on that final defensive series?
Just the quarterback was executing, throwing the ball. He's a really good quarterback. His efficiency rating is like third in the league, and so he's a veteran that does a great job for him. Got a lot of respect for him, and he just executed that drive almost flawlessly. And so, but then to our credit, we come back and march right back down the field the other way, and a really good field goal range till the intentional grounding penalty, but that made it a 54-yarder. Cole hit it pretty decently, just a little bit wide right, I guess is what it was. And so Cole has been pretty reliable this year. I think he's close to 80% with his kicks. And so that was the difference.
Obviously, with the season so close to being finished, and you're in the midst of an offensive coordinator search, with the way this season has gone, and like you mentioned, the plug-and-play environment that now is college football, how are you surveying what type of candidate that you want to lead this offense moving forward?
Yeah, taking a look at everybody in the country, essentially, and looking at who's done what and who's done what where and with what personnel. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, hey, whichever team scores the most, that's the guy you want. And so we're doing a thorough search, and it's important that we get somebody in place sooner rather than later, ideally before signing day. But as I've said many times, it's more important you get the right guy. The timing is important, but not as important as getting the right guy. And so we're doing a national search and see what we come away with.
On the final incompletion before the field goal attempt, Luke threw the balls to the middle of the field and it was wide open there. Do you know if the tight end or the receiver had an option to go there?
No, I don't. I haven't had a chance to go analyze that. It was the last play of the game, just trying to get everything straight for the field goal. But we'll hash that out tomorrow. But Luke played pretty darn good, and the one on the intentional grounding, that was a route structure issue. But anyway,
Kyle, you extend the streak to 21 years with Landon Barnes' pick six. I know you lose, but how does it feel to finally get that streak for another year?
well, yeah, that streak I guess is nice, but I don't know what great play by Lander, by the way. And the whole defense, they executed that interception return drill, which we work on every week in practice flawlessly. But that's one of those tertiary, is that the right word? Tertiary things that are positive, but not really applicable to winning a championship. I mean, I guess minimally, because we've been able to score on defense with a pick six for at least once for that many years, but I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to that stat. It's more about winning and losing.
Kyle, can I just ask you what it means to honor Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe tonight?
It means a ton, and to have their families here, and got to spend some time with their families yesterday. They would have been seniors, obviously. That's the reason that we had the honoring of those two young men, and we miss them. We miss them, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of guys left on our team that knew them because they both came 5 years ago, the COVID year, which obviously didn't count. But anyway, it was really special to honor them and have their families here. Great families. Love those people.
That's head coach Kyle Whittingham after Utah falls to Iowa State 31-28. There were stretches in that game, Alex. I thought Utah was going to pull it off. I know Cougar faithful, they were wanting the Utes to get it done because had Utah won, that would have put BYU in the pole position to get to the Big 12 championship game.
Just had to beat Houston, yeah.
Utah comes up short, and it's crazy to say. Well, it's not crazy because how this season's played out, watching it week by week, but it's still surreal, I guess you could say, to think Utah's at 4-7 and 7-game losing streak. They will not have a winning season in a year where they were the preseason favorite in the Big 12. First time since 2013 that Utah is not going to finish the year with a winning season, so it's another year without the chance of a bowl win. I mean, that's some streaks that Utah didn't think we'd be talking about with Utah at the end of this year.
Yeah, it's a rough one, and when you watch it and you go, these guys are talented, and this senior group being sent out like they were, it was a senior night last night. That's a rough way to see it go because it was a lot of guys. There was a 25 senior class, which is like almost double what they usually get, and it's because a lot of them are part of that COVID senior era, and so you had a lot more guys who were walking. It was pretty emotional, and that's a rough one. And Kyle Whittingham had his guys dialed up. They were certainly inspired a little bit, but just falling short against Rocco Beck and Iowa State. I'm not impressed by them that much either, but, a win's a win in Salt Lake, and that's what it is. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We've got more to go right around the corner. We have our Big 12 headlines. We're going to get to all of it. So stay right here, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio. It's 1st and 12.
The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. 1st and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
What is up, everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday morning. Appreciate you spending some time with us on your Sunday. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. If you miss any part of 1st and 12, subscribe to our podcast on the KSL Sports app or wherever you get your podcast. Alex, death, taxes, and when BYU goes to an old Pac-12 venue, it's going to get nasty. It's going to get heated, and that's what happened in Sun Devil Stadium yesterday as the Cougs fall to ASU, and Utah falls at home on Senior Day to Iowa State. So tough outcomes for our local teams, but we cover it all in Big 12 football here on 1st and 12, and let's dive into the league on Big 12 headlines.
12 headlines.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The dozen storylines that shape this week of Big 12 football. Headline 1.
I want to know where you were, Mitch, when the fans hit the field. Like, were you going full TMZ? I mean, I saw the videos you sent, but Arizona State fans stormed the field. It's a wild scene at the end. Now, BYU, I mean, it looked like the game was already over. It almost felt like it, even on that last attempt. I think they ended up calling it an incomplete pass to Chase Roberts at the end. So it wasn't that he was at the 2 and was almost going to stretch in. It wasn't like a, it wasn't like a Kevin Dyson type situation. But what it was BYU did get that one more second on the clock, and but they still fall with tens of thousands of fans on the very outside of the field trying to see this thing end. So for one, I mean, they're going to get fined or whatever because you can't have your fans storm the field, but I kind of love that attitude. I love that Arizona State You know, you don't love it if you're a BYU fan, but I like that an upstart team that nobody thought could do anything was doing something awesome, because obviously BYU is doing a very similar thing this year. And Kenny Dillingham is 34 freaking years old. He's this head coach of this team. They're doing awesome.
And I love that there's another team besides Utah that when BYU lines up against them, maybe in 2 weeks or next year, there's some actual heat, there's some actual intensity behind the matchup instead of, oh, it's just BYU's got the nicest fans, they got the best road traveling fans, we love
bring
this.
ice cream.
Like, oh, it's the nicest hospitality. Like, oh, I love the heat, I love the conference intensity. But I will say, down the field, I just my concern was, oh man, you get the high emotions of, alpha athletes going back to the locker room, because Arizona State fans were clogging up the walkway to get to the locker room, and BYU administrators Brian Santiago and Tom Holmel were, going to the security. You got to clear this out, because that could have got ugly.
Walk to the,
That could have got to where
some
players
Michigan State stuff from a couple years ago.
Exactly, and that would have got really nasty. And so, but it ultimately ended up being okay. There was roped off, and it worked out. So there was no kind of extracurriculars, but. So it got a little tense from that side of things, but it's rowdy. It's college football. Like, you're going to get students that are enjoying beverages that are not soda shops beverages. So it's a little bit different scene in Tempe than what we're used to in Provo.
It's not Swig Stadium. It's in Tempe. What are you talking about?
No, it's not. It's not. But I do love the intensity, and I think if this can be a rematch in the Big 12 championship, sign me up, because that would be a lot of fun. BYU, though, has got to take care of business going forward, because they were asleep at the wheel in the first half. They showed a lot of fight, but too little too late as they fall to the Sun Devils. How about Iowa State? Like you said earlier, Alex, I don't think we come away overly impressed with them, but, hey, they're still in this path to potentially get to Arlington as they control their destiny, and they get by Utah in Salt Lake City. Matt Campbell's squad is right there knocking on the door of a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, they just have to win. It's Farmageddon, though. Anything can happen. You got Kansas State, who's got a chip on their shoulder. They're going to Ames, and they could play spoiler for that, and BYU fans certainly are hoping for that if they have any chance. Everything starts with beating Houston, though, for BYU. Now, Utah going to have their first losing season since 2013, but it's not just that. If they lose next week, Mitch, we went back and checked this out. It'll be the first time in Utah's football program history that in one season they lost 8 games in a row. There have been seasons that they've only had 1 or 2 wins, but it was, breaking the season up. But a season has never been an 8-game losing streak ever in the history of Utah football. That's something that we never would have imagined we would have ever said this year. Utah falls to Iowa State 31-28, and Isaac Wilson doesn't look like he's going to be back the rest of the year, pending whatever the outcome is of that, what that knee is. How about Kansas, who has now dispatched the 3 best teams in the league for the last 3 weeks in a row? Iowa State, then BYU, and now Colorado yesterday. Devin Neal gets 250 total yards, and I don't know what it is. I know Travis Hunter was great, great, awesome. He got 2 touchdowns. They lost by 16 points to a Kansas team that everybody thought was dead and gone. This Kansas team could go to the Big 12 championship game, and they would probably beat anybody. I would put something on that. I almost want to see that. But you know what? You got to get it done. You got to win the close games, and they decided later in the year to get it going. I'm glad that Lance Leipold figured it out. But, of course, Colorado, they're going to need a miracle now to get in that Big 12 championship game. As soon as BYU beats Houston next week, if that happens, Colorado will be eliminated from contention, and then they won't be in that Big 12 talk. And maybe Brett Yormark gets a little bit sad about that, Mitch.
I swear the only conversation nationally is how, with the Big 12, is, how the media pollsters just got it completely wrong with the preseason poll. Well, you know what? Maybe this Kansas team was good. They were just snake bit early in the season.
Yeah,
and, hey, don't knock the media, too, because you know what? You want to open it up and let us learn a little bit more about these teams. Maybe open things up so we can actually get to know these teams instead of just making some wild predictions. But Kansas has got talent. They are really good. But still, like it's amazing how they've turned it on and looked really good. And they've obviously saved Jeff Grimes' job because he was, target number 1 for Kansas fans. They wanted him fired, and now they're rolling with one more win needed to get to a bowl game. Kansas State, their rival in the Sunflower State, they trashed Cincinnati 41-15. And as you know, it sets up an epic Farmageddon. BYU fans are going to be watching that closely.
Baylor beat Houston, and Baylor, by the way, Are they at 7 wins now? Are they 7-4? The Bears
Yes,
down there.
5 wins in a row.
Good for them.
5 wins
and,
in a row.
Dave Aranda, they already said they were going to retain him, and I think that's a good choice. I think that they figured a lot of stuff out. Them, Kansas, some of these other teams who didn't get off to a great start, they really have figured some things out. Baylor's one of those squads. You'd like to see those teams start to figure things out. You want it to be more competitive. West Virginia beats UCF. The Knights not going to be able to go to a bowl this year, but they can beat Utah next week at home to finish their regular season. West Virginia, by the way, I mean, Neil Brown, I don't know what people want out of this guy. He just keeps winning some football games, and they want to fire him, I'm sure, but he just keeps overperforming. I like West Virginia, but they just have had a weird season that hasn't turned into much for them. But speaking of weird seasons, TCU blows up Arizona. Speaking of other teams, TCU and Baylor very much in the same boat. Slow start. Now they're 7-4. And Sonny Dykes, everybody's favorite head coach down there in Fort Worth, is probably not going to be on the hot seat anymore.
That he's not, and I think Sonny Dykes. They've had a strong showing to turn around that season. On the flip side, Oklahoma State still winless in conference play as a battle of the two worst defenses in the conference sees Texas Tech go 56-48 over Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Oklahoma State 0-7, wild situation. And then finally, 4 teams tied atop the Big 12 standings at 6-2, heading into the final week of the season. So yes, folks, Big 12 chaos. It will be an absolute ugly mess. It'll be a disaster, but I am here for that.
Yeah, man.
And it's going to be so much fun. Also, 9 teams have qualified now for bowl games. They hit that 6-win mark. 2 more. Kansas and Cincinnati, if they get 1 more win, they will qualify for a bowl game as well. So could be some good postseason representation from the Big 12 this holiday season.
Are you going to have to buy your ticket to Shreveport if the Cougs don't make that Big 12 championship game, Mitch?
Do not put that on me, Alex. Do not put that on me. I will happily take a Pop-Tarts bowl. I will happily take a Pop-Tarts bowl.
Absolutely. All right, our program brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store, the freshest fruits and vegetables from the local farms and your local favorite brands. Macy's, happy shopping. Let's take the break. We'll come back. We've got our sound roundup next. You don't want to miss some of the best sound from across the league. Stay here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio.
Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from Saturday's postgame news conferences.
Welcome back, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. It is 1st and 12. Alex, Kirry, Mitch, Harper, our illustrious producer, Eric Cabrera as well. So many things going on here in the Big 12, and it's week... What was this? This was week 12 right here. No, week 13.
Yeah,
this was week 13 technically. Next week will be week 14 for teams to get to their 12th games of the season. So BYU coming back home, Utah going on the road, and everybody else is going to be watching the rest of the conference with a lot of bated breath to see how this thing's going to end up. One of the chaotic moments of last night's matchups, of course, were part of what happened with Coach Prime and Kansas versus Colorado at the Chiefs Stadium there at Arrowhead. Here's Coach Prime on taking that L there in Kansas.
Wonderful coach who is one of my favorites in the Big 12. I feel as though we have a tremendous relationship. He checked on me when nobody was. We exchanged pleasantries before the game, and I told him that his team is resilient. They're a reflection of who he is. They fight to the end. They're very physical. They're tough. They're tenacious. They ran the heck out of the football, which we couldn't stop, period, today. We started smelling ourselves a little bit. That's what I just told our team. We got intoxicated with the success. We got intoxicated with the multitude of articles and the assumption that we're this and the assumption that we're that, and we did not play CU football.
I feel like Prime doesn't actually know Lance Leipold's name, Mitch. Don't you feel like he's like, wonderful coach?
I was wondering the same thing.
That guy. He's one of the best. I couldn't help but wonder if he actually knows who Lance Leipold is, but he called him when he was going through some rough times.
Because it's plausible that Coach Prime doesn't know D3 Wisconsin Whitewater football. Because that's where Leipold came from in Buffalo. So it's very possible that he has no clue who Leipold is. Maybe he thought Andy Reid was coaching Kansas.
We exchanged pleasantries before the game. I thought he was the ball boy. Oh my goodness, Coach Prime always delivering on the. But he was dead right. His guys have fallen to 8-3 now in the season, 6-2. They need a lot of help. They're probably the ones who have the least chance to be able to get into that Big 12 championship game. BYU would have to lose against Houston. That's the first domino that would have to fall next week for them. They'd have to have ASU lose as well. Oh boy, and then I think, well, a lot of scenarios for them to have to be able to get in, but I don't think they will. But still. Phenomenal season. Speaking of Lance Leipold, he's the head coach of Kansas, and they have just rattled off 3 of the most impressive wins all season in the Big 12.
As I told them, I'm extremely proud of them. Again, of their resolve and resiliency of going through it. There's a lot of negativity hanging around about what was wrong with this program and what should be done and things like that. We talked about how close we were for a long time, and they owned it. They kept working. They stuck together. And you can see the results of that, and I think it is something that's truly special. And for us to play as well as we did today is another sign of that. And now we have a chance to still reach a pretty special goal, but we have to go out and play another good football team.
Where on earth was that press conference? It was supposed to be home. It was supposed to be Kansas playing at home. I know it's Arrowhead. It's not their place. It's like, can we do the press conference from let's go back to Lawrence and do it from the rubble where we are remodeling the stadium. Can we? My goodness. But yeah, Lance Leipold, I'm surprised. Like you go into a year, everybody says you're going to finish top 4. You start off the season 3-6, and then you're looking around the locker room. You could easily just phone it in, especially some of these guys who are definitely going to be NFL dudes, guys like Kobe Bryant. I mean, I don't know what Jalen Daniels is going to do, after this, but he's certainly a talent. He never really got to realize all of it, but he is now, and I think it's pretty impressive, Mitch.
It really is, and Kansas is an entertaining football team. They got a lot of talent, man, and it's crazy to think that they had as many struggles as they did, but when you comb through that schedule and how it's worked out this year, I mean, they just had so many close calls and they couldn't finish the job. And now they had that breakthrough with Iowa State, and that just did a world of good for this team. And they can do no wrong now. And they're so hot. They're one of the top teams. It'll be interesting to see where we have them in our Big 12 power rankings coming up next hour. Activate the Valley. I'm here still in Tempe, going to catch a flight a little bit later today. And
stay down there.
Dillingham, I got to say,
the weather's nice, man. Just stay down there.
It's so nice. As Kalani says, Kalani has said this a few times every, when the winter changes or the weather changes in Utah. Oh, I see why people like it here in Boca Raton. I see why people like it here in Arizona. Yes, Kalani, the weather's great. But Kenny Dillingham has activated the Valley, and I really believe, Alex, that Arizona State, they might have their modern version of Frank Kush with Kenny Dillingham. I think that he is the perfect fit for that program. They had a huge weekend taking down BYU. They re-upped reportedly some of their coordinators, so they are showing a commitment, and this was Dillingham after the win over BYU.
We won the football game. We beat another ranked team in in Mountain America Stadium, right? And this is all about the guys. I mean, these guys battled. These guys fought. These guys found a way to win. And it doesn't matter whatever happened at the end, it happened. You know what? We got to rush the field twice. How about that? We rushed the field 3 times this year. That's pretty cool. Not many people get the opportunity to do that. Come to Arizona State because there's going to be a lot more of that coming forward.
So they should have like a coaching marketing award every year, I feel like. And like between Indiana's Kurt Cignetti, Prime, of course, and then Kenny Dillingham. I think Kenny Dillingham might be the one who's the most brilliant marketer of them. And you know what? 34 years old, he's changed everything there in Tempe. And got to be happy for those Arizona State fans who watched a program that just got embarrassed over a decade with just messes after messes after messes. And Kenny Dillingham cleaned it up in 18 months. I mean, that's as impressive as anything. It's not just turning the team around and winning. It's keeping your program together, and this is a way to do it. Winning kind of solves everything. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Hour number 2 of the program is right around the corner. Guess what we've got? We've got that Utah and Iowa State game breakdown for you. We've got sound from Tempe, from Kalani Sitake, his podium address to the media last night. So stick around for all of it. It's KSL News Radio. It's 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone, and we are First and 12.